Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into one of the most important and challenging topics in climate and agriculture for greenhouse gas reporting: Scope 3 emissions. When we think about greenhouse gas emissions, we often picture smokestacks or tailpipes. But for food and agriculture companies, most emissions come from somewhere else far earlier in the supply chain. These are called Scope 3 emissions, the indirect greenhouse gas emissions that occur throughout a company's value chain, both upstream from suppliers and downstream from product use and disposal. They're defined by the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which categorizes greenhouse gas emissions into three scopes. Scope 1 emissions include greenhouse gas directly emitted by an organization's facilities or operations. Examples include greenhouse gas emissions emitted from a company's own facilities and vehicles. Scope 2 emissions come from power generation, usually purchased from public utilities, to fuel a company's operations. This is a form of indirect greenhouse gas emissions for companies. Scope 3 emissions are those a company causes indirectly via its supply chain. A food company, for example, would include emissions generated in the production and transport of raw materials or ingredients it purchases. To illustrate, imagine a company operates a processed food factory. The company has a greenhouse gas footprint based on this facility's emissions. We call these Scope 1 emissions since they result from the company's main activities. That company may want to offset these emissions by buying carbon offsets from other companies that have reduced their own emissions in ways others have not. This is the Scope 1 market. This same food company can also take a broader look at its greenhouse gas footprint, looking beyond its own offices and accounting for the emissions associated with the agricultural goods that it uses for its finished products. Greenhouse gas emissions that result from the production of its raw materials are considered the food company's Scope 3 emissions. In other words, Scope 3 represents the emissions that result from the company's supply chain as the raw materials are produced and make their way to the factory. For most food, beverage, and agriculture-based companies, Scope 3 emissions make up 85 or 90% of total emissions. These are largely tied to on-farm production activities like fertilizer use, livestock methane, soil management, and land use change that occur before products even reach the company's facilities. In this session, we'll discuss why Scope 3 matters in agriculture, challenges and opportunities for companies to address their Scope 3 emissions, and how ESMC's Eco-Harvest program can help reduce your company's on-farm production activity-related emissions. Addressing Scope 3 emissions is essential for companies with net zero or science-based targets, since these emissions often dominate their climate footprint. Reducing them requires collaboration with farmers, ranchers, and suppliers who directly influence emissions through agricultural practices. Measuring and verifying. Scope 3 reductions in agriculture is complex because farms are biologically variable systems influenced by weather, soil, and management. Programs like ESMC's Eco-Harvest use advanced modeling, data, and third-party verification to quantify climate and environmental outcomes to help companies address and reduce their Scope 3 emissions on farms. Let's examine 6 ways to address agricultural Scope 3 emissions. 1. Supporting regenerative agricultural practices. The most direct opportunity lies in helping farmers and ranchers adopt conservation practices that reduce emissions or increase carbon sequestration. ESMC's Eco-Harvest program includes many of these practice adoption opportunities within projects. These include soil health improvements, like reduced tillage, cover crops, and crop rotations, that enhance soil carbon storage, precision nutrient management to minimize fertilizer use and reduce nitrous oxide emissions, improved manure and feed management to cut methane from livestock systems, agroforestry and perennial plantings that sequester carbon and improve ecosystem resilience. By aligning corporate sourcing or sustainability programs with these practices, companies can directly reduce Scope 3 emissions within their supply chains. 2. Building verified carbon and ecosystem markets programs. Like ESMC's EcoHarvest, create structured science-based markets that quantify, verify, and reward positive environmental outcomes. These systems allow companies to purchase verified environmental outcomes measured in tons of CO2e reduced or pounds of nitrogen prevented from entering waterways. Invest in regenerative supply chains while supporting farmers financially. Ensure credible accounting of Scope 3 reductions through standardized measurement and third-party verification. This approach connects corporate investment directly to measurable change on the ground. 3. Engaging farmers as partners. Farmers are central to solving Scope 3 challenges, but they need the right incentives, tools, and recognition. Opportunities include cost share and incentive programs to offset transition costs, technical assistance and access to data or decision support tools, collaborative projects that build long-term trust and shared value across supply chains. Engaging farmers as partners, not just suppliers, ensures both environmental and economic benefits. 4. Leveraging data, modeling, and technology. Emerging technologies are making it easier to track and verify on-farm outcomes. Remote sensing, field data platforms, and advanced modeling enable credible emissions accounting across large regions. Data integration tools can align sustainability reporting with supply chain traceability. Digital MRV systems, monitoring, reporting, and verification, provide transparency and scalability. Investing in these tools improves the precision and credibility of Scope 3 reporting. 5. Embedding stewardship goals in procurement and policy. Companies can reduce Scope 3 emissions by embedding sustainability into procurement decisions, prioritizing suppliers who implement regenerative practices, establishing sustainable sourcing standards tied to emissions outcomes, supporting industry-wide collaborations and policy frameworks that enable data sharing and market access. This creates systemic change, helping entire value chains lower emissions together. For example, with EcoHarvest, multiple buyers can co-invest in a project to share Scope 3 outcomes and reduce costs. Through co-investment, organizations that occupy different levels of the supply chain can invest in the same outcomes. This co-investment strategy ensures the greatest value to buyers and sellers, and can reduce the cost that buyers pay for Scope 3 outcomes by sharing project and intervention costs. 6. Co-benefits and broader impact. Addressing Scope 3 in agriculture unlocks more than carbon benefits. It also improves water quality and soil resilience, enhances biodiversity and pollinator habitats, and strengthens rural economies and community resilience. These co-benefits make investments in regenerative agriculture one of the most impactful opportunities for companies. ESMC's EcoHarvest program can help your company develop and implement Scope 3 projects within your supply chain. Check out our website to learn more about EcoHarvest program benefits or get in touch with us to talk about a project.